Glenn Beck, out of nowhere yesterday, decided to finally fess up to the reality of the situation with the war in Iraq. Listen to him tell liberals we were right.
You cannot force democracy on the Iraqis or anybody else. It doesn't work. They don't understand it or even really want it. And they may be too immersed in their own belief of Sharia law to ever be able to embrace liberty, or at least at this time. And if people vote for Sharia law, then they vote for Sharia law. We tried. What can we do? We've lost thousands of American lives. We have lost thousands of lives on the Iraqi side. Tens of thousands have been wounded. We have spent $2 trillion. Let me say that again. $2 trillion. Upwards of 200,000 Iraqi citizens, security forces, aid workers, insurgents have been killed. Now, that's the conservative number. Liberals will tell you that it's, almost 1 million people. I don't know what the number is. But after all of that, hundreds of thousands of lives, $2 trillion, the best minds in the world trying to do it, it's about to fall apart. Now, in spite of the things that I felt at the time when we went into war, liberals said we shouldn't get involved. They said we shouldn't get mired in another foreign mess. We shouldn't nation build. And besides, there was no indication that the people of Iraq had the will to be free. I thought that was insulting at the time. Everybody wants to be free. They said we couldn't force freedom on people. You know what? Let me lead with my mistakes. You're right. Liberals, you were right.
You're damn right we were. And we will sit here and wait for you to admit that we're right about everything else, too. Now, I know you're not going to do that. I know that's wishful thinking. But the level to which we were right, especially on the issue of Iraq, is overwhelming today when you look at how the Middle East is destroyed and we broke it. Okay? But Glenn Beck didn't always feel like this, so just for shits and gigs, let's go back and look at some of his most ridiculous arguments in favor of the war in Iraq.
But if you want to realize just how confused this country really is, listen to this part of the poll. 58% of the people say succeeding in Iraq is either extremely or very important. Great. Now, I would argue that the other 42% are either living in a state of denial or they're just plain stupid and just don't get it.
The real story about Iraq can be found in the eyes of the children, 98% of whom have been vaccinated for diseases like polio, or who are attending one of the 4,500 schools that have been rebuilt and restocked with over 8 million textbooks by coalition forces. You can also see it in the bravery and patriotism of the 19,000 newly trained members of the elite Iraqi Special Police Force and the 18,000 border agents who are now protecting Iraq's border with Syria, or the amazing progress of Iraq's economy, where over 33,000 new businesses have started up since the end of the war. The real story can even be seen in places you'd never even think to look, like the fact under Saddam, virtually no one had even heard of a cell phone. Today, there are over 5 million users.
Take a deep breath as I tell you 64% of Americans say the costs of winning outweigh the benefits. Now, let's run that through the old bullcrap to English dictionary. What it really means, I think, is that 64% of the American public wants to pull out because there's just not enough to gain there. That is absolutely frightening. We understand how important this war is, but we don't have the guts to actually fight to win it. Sound familiar? It should. In 1940, a year before Pearl Harbor, the Gallup poll asked Americans whether we should declare war on Germany if it looked like they were defeating England and France. 77% said no. Take a wild guess at what the reason was for the majority of people when they gave their answer. Quote, "We would have everything to lose and nothing to gain." Nothing to gain by defeating Hitler? I mean, this is the greatest American generation. They literally saved all of us from speaking German and eating bratwurst at Thanksgiving. But before December 7th, 1941, they are as clueless as we are right now.
Oh, that's hilarious. So Saddam was like Hitler, and opposing the war in Iraq was like opposing World War II. God, that's such a stupid argument. He actually called people who were against the war stupid. So I guess by your own logic, Glenn, you of today is stupid. And then he bragged like Iraq was a utopia with all those bullshit numbers with the good, nice music in the background, saying, oh, it's a sentimental moment when the American soldier hands out textbooks to Iraqi citizens. Yeah, that's all that was fake. I mean, he pretended like Iraq was a utopia, and they bragged about how good the border security is. You know how long that border security lasted when ISIS came to town? Negative 14 seconds. There were reports that the people literally dropped their guns and ran away, the people protecting the border. It just shows you how full of shit Glenn Beck is. And he's like, they have cell phones. I mean, obviously they have cell phones. It's gotta work. We brought them the freedom of Verizon and T-Mobile. Look, here's the thing, man. I know I'm being a douche because at least he came around to the right position now, but keep in mind something, and this is one of the main differences between a show like ours or other progressive outlets and the conservative outlets, okay? Why is Glenn Beck doing this now? Because he's gonna go back and forth with every single Democratic administration and Republican administration. When it was George W. Bush in office and it was a neoconservative and it was a Republican, you defend at all costs. You play defense for your team. But when it's President Obama in office, oh, he's considering sending in airstrikes. Oh, he sent 275 troops to protect the private contractors there. Oh, they're mulling the idea of further action. Well, now we're against it because he might be for it. He did the same thing with Syria. Remember, President Obama was for intervening in Syria? Now, of course, I was against it, right? But Glenn Beck was against it, not because he's principled and against war. No, it depends on which administration is calling for war. If it's a Democrat calling for war, now we're anti-war and we're non-interventionists. If it's a Republican calling for war, oh, we're totally in favor of it because Republicans are totally right about everything. So it depends on the administration. He is the very definition of a partisan.